ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's made there in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. First, the headline stories. At least 12 Togolese soldiers killed by suspected terrorists near the border with Burkina Faso. Senegal River Development Organization report reveals high levels of contamination at Falémé.
C'est des eaux qui sont chargées de mercure. Donc c'est un produit très dangereux qu'utilisent les gens.
The water is heavily polluted with mercury. It's a chemical used for mining gold. It's dangerous for consumption and very dangerous for human health. It's also not healthy for agricultural purposes.
De cette zone, de leur activité principale qui est une activité agricole.
ECOWAS highlights key achievements and challenges at the 6th mid-year coordination meeting in Accra. And citizens in Niger are struggling with lack of access to safe drinking water.
Imaginez aujourd'hui si on te dit chaque fois quand tu peux boire.
Imagine being told that every time you need to drink water, you must first boil it or strain it. It's a daunting task to manage. It's crucial for public authorities and our partners to...
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. This edition begins in Togo, where at least 12 soldiers were killed in a terrorist attack near the border with Burkina Faso. Reports indicate the armed individuals on motorcycles and vehicles launched the attack, overwhelming the Togolese forces. Eche Atisu reports.
A source close to the Togolese presidency expressed deep sorrow over the loss, stating that they had deplored the tragic loss of 12 valiant soldiers who fell on the field of honor. The source emphasized that their sacrifices would not be in vain and vowed to redouble efforts to ensure the security of the country. Approximately 40 terrorists were neutralized during the incident. The attack was reportedly carried out by an unverified number of fighters from Ansarul Islam, a faction of JNIM led by Burkinabe Fobe Idrissa Diko, also known as Sekou Muslim. The jihadists reportedly overwhelmed the Togolese special forces, causing a disorderly retreat and holding the barracks for several hours before retreating to Burkina Faso. Since the start of the attacks in November 2021, nearly 150 people, including security forces, have been killed in Togo, and significant military equipment has been lost. Despite efforts to negotiate with JNIM to stop the attack, these attempts have failed. The jihadists have demanded the release of militants, compensation for destroyed property, and support for internally displaced persons (IDPs). The large-scale attack is believed to be part of JNIM's strategy to establish a recognized autonomous region, Mantika, in Togo, similar to one granted to fighters of Katiba Hanifa last month.
Eche Atusu with that report. The Beninese government revealed that some 5,000 Burkinabe refugees had arrived in the country to seek refuge. In a statement by the government spokesman Wilfred Hombeji, Benin welcomed this number of refugees in less than 48 hours in the northern region. He explained that this massive displacement is due to the terrorist threat raging in their country. This latest revelation comes shortly after the transitional president of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, accused Cotonou of harboring French military bases aimed at destabilizing his country. Not disturbed by this diplomatic role, Hombeji disclosed that Benin is making all necessary arrangements to ease the plight of the refugees who arrived in search of peace and security. Benin also says it has shown its commitment to the Pan-Africanist Front on the front of the free movement of people and goods within the ECOWAS area. Meanwhile, the government of Côte d'Ivoire has also firmly rejected Burkina Faso's transitional president's accusation that it is attempting to destabilize Burkina Faso. The Ivorian Defense Minister Teni Brahimman Ouattara labelled these claims as baseless in an interview with journalists. He emphasized that Cote d'Ivoire has no interest in destabilizing Burkina Faso, while highlighting the recent expulsion of Burkinabe refugees and the planned closure of a refugee camp as evidence of the strained relations. Brahimman also noted that military cooperation between the two countries, particularly in counter-terrorism, has been suspended since 2023 due to last-minute cancellation by Burkina Faso. He stressed Cote d'Ivoire's willingness to conduct joint operations to secure their border regions. Since Captain Traoré's rise to power in September 2022, diplomatic tensions between the two nations have increased. Away from Cote d'Ivoire, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has provided an update on the status of the sub-regional organization, highlighting significant achievements and ongoing challenges. The briefing was made by President Bola Tinubu, the chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, at the 6th May-year coordination meeting of the African Union in Accra, Ghana. President Tinubu reported on the activation of a standby force to combat terrorism and the support to member states to improve electoral and governance processes in Senegal and Togo as some of the successes. He also noted the facilitation of the National Unity Agreement in Sierra Leone with ongoing efforts to implement its provisions. Oge Oberika has more in this report.
Addressing the 6th Media Coordination Meeting of the African Union in Accra, Ghana, President Bola Tinubu highlighted that economic integration has seen progress with the consolidation of the Free Trade Area, Customs Union, and Common Market, supported by the ratification of key trade agreements by member states. ECOWAS has also allocated substantial funds to assist refugees, internally displaced persons, and those affected by terrorism, while initiatives in education and health have focused on empowering women and promoting gender equality. He further emphasized advancements in energy and agriculture, including electrification projects and support for solar SMEs with significant financial backing. ECOWAS has been active in environmental governance and food security, supporting member states in international negotiations and promoting climate-smart agriculture. Tinubu also highlighted the election of the first female president of the ECOWAS Parliament and the active role of the ECOWAS Community Court of Justice. However, he acknowledged multiple threats to the region, including geopolitical rivalries, terrorism, food insecurity, climate change, and misinformation. In response, ECOWAS plans to continue dialogues with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, and will convene a special extraordinary summit on the future of the community. Tinubu concluded by underscoring the importance of collaboration with other AU regional communities to strengthen continental integration. The meeting, themed Educate and Skill Africa for the 21st Century, is a principal forum for aligning the work of the AU and regional economic communities and coordinating the continental integration agenda.
Oge Oberika Fight that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now, here in Senegal, discussions are ongoing about the Senegal River Development Organization OMVS study on the water quality of the Falémé River, located in the eastern region and connecting 4 countries of the organization. The study, conducted with the support of the French Development Agency, reveals that the waters of the Falémé are toxic. The member states of the OMVS point to illegal gold mining activities taking place in Kédougou in the southeast of Senegal as being the reason for the pollution. Here is Rosa Marrakech with the details.
According to the Senegalese River Department Organization, OMVS, the toxic chemicals used to extract gold are negatively threatening the waters of the Falémé River. This river connects Guinea, Mali, Mauritania, and Senegal. Located in the east of Senegal, it is the main water source for farmers in the eastern regions of the country. Sambaka, the Secretary General of the Association of Market Gardeners in the Bakke department in the Tambacounda region, shares his concerns.
C'est des eaux qui sont chargées de mercure. Donc c'est un produit très dangereux qu'utilisent les gens.
The water is heavily polluted with mercury. It's a chemical used for mining gold. It's dangerous for consumption and very dangerous for human health. It's also not healthy for agricultural purposes.
De cette zone, de leur activité principale qui est une activité agricole.
According to Sambaka, the degrading state of the river due to the gold planning activities should prompt the Senegalese authorities to take action.
The
authorities must institute that there are measures in place to ensure that people mine responsibly. This will ensure the environment as well as the rivers in Senegal are preserved.
The
OMVS, for its part, promises to think about it. I quote, effective strategies to reduce the impact of gold mining on the Faleme.
That was Mustafa Jakit's report, voiced by Rose Samara Cates. Meanwhile, the government of President Bassirou Diomaye Faye is set to receive 28.2 million euros, equivalent to 18.5 billion CFA francs from Japan, to support various sectors in the country. This follows an agreement between the two countries which sets the pace for such grant to support major sectors in Senegal. According to the agreement, the funding will be allocated to areas such as agriculture, health, and security. The agreement was formalized on Friday in Dakar by OSIWA, Japanese ambassador, and Abdourahmane Sarr, the Senegalese minister in charge of the economy, planning, and cooperation. In the health sector, the funding will be used to improve infrastructure and enhance the capacity of health system to provide better care for the population. Additionally, the grant will contribute to strengthening the security situation in the country. This initiative by Japan aims to foster cooperative relations for sustainable and equitable development between the two nations. Away from Senegal, in a bid to leverage Africa's homegrown policies and solutions to the continent's lack in the global financial architecture, multilateral finance institutions owned and controlled by Africans have allied to address the trade and investment shortfalls on the continent. WADR's Nadia Tete reports.
The members of the Alliance for African Multilateral Financial Institutions, AAMFI, include Africa Finance Corporation, AFC, African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, Trade and Development Bank Group, and the African Reinsurance Corporation, Africa RE. Speaking at the inaugural press conference on the sidelines of the AU Mid-Year Summit in Accra, Ghana, inaugural chairman of the AAMFI and president of the Afreximbank, Professor Benedict Orama, said the alliance is a testament of Africa's commitment to being self-reliant.
Promote the interests of member states and also advocate for Africa on global finance issues. Develop innovative finance tools, support sustainable finance strategies, coordinate debt management negotiations, and also support the African Union Commission, especially in its engagement at the G20 level.
African Union Commissioner for Economic Development, Trade, Tourism, Industry and Minerals, Albert Muchanga, believes the alliance's formation, together with market institutions across the continent, will be crucial in developing an African capital market critical to domestic financing. Other members of the group are African Trade and Investment Development Insurance, Shelter Afrique Development Bank, ZEP RE, African Solidarity Fund, ASF, and East African Development Bank. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
In Nigeria, ahead of the nationwide protest scheduled to start on August 1 this year, some security analysts are warning over the possibility of the 10-day protest turning violent and leading to destruction. The protesters, if granted permission, will be demonstrating against the country's economic and security challenges, among a plethora of issues. WADR's Abuja correspondent Usma Umar reports.
The imminent protest is seeking several actions from the government, including clarity on its stance on fuel subsidies, a reduction in fuel prices to below 300 naira per litre, and addressing security challenges such as terrorism and kidnapping. Other demands are the reversal of tertiary education and electricity tariff hikes, the disclosure and reduction of lawmakers' salaries, supporting small and medium-scale enterprises, ensuring independent National Electoral Commission's independence and the reopening of national borders. However, security experts are raising concerns, warning that the protest could lead to unwanted outcomes if not properly managed. Mr. Lanre Balogun is a former chief security officer, Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
The history of protests in Nigeria, we know how it is. Of course, the one going on in Kenya, we also know how it has gone, And when we talk about democracy, democracy is not complete without the voice of the people. Now, you will agree with me that since the inception of this government, things have taken a new turn. And so that protest is very much in order. However, if they want to protest, they should be allowed to, but it should be guided. It should be, the youths also that want to take to the streets should also check among themselves. Do they have miscreants that want to take advantage to loot people's property, destroy infrastructure?
Some economists and public sector analysts, on the other hand, are looking at the upcoming protest with some optimism. They believe that the protest could be an opportunity for the government to address pressing economic issues and prevent further unrest. Kayode Ajala, a public affairs analyst, shares this view.
For me, if the protest is going to be peaceful, it will go a long way to express the opinion of the masses against government and against our politicians. For them to know that the reason why people are protesting is because of bad governance. There is need for a national conference.
The planned protest, named #EndBadGovernance, is reminiscent of the #EndSARS demonstrations in October 2020, although the #EndSARS movement turned violent, resulting in the loss of lives and widespread destruction of properties. It achieved its major aim, the disbandment of the notorious police squad, the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, which had become infamous for numerous rights abuses. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. At least 12 Togolese soldiers killed by suspected terrorists near the border with Burkina Faso. Senegal's River Development Organization report reveals high levels of contamination at Falémé. ECOWAS highlights key achievements and challenges at the 6th mid-year coordination meeting in Accra. And still ahead, citizens in Niger are struggling with the lack of access to safe drinking water. We do have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thanks for staying with us. And as a reminder, we are streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Over to Niger now, where access to safe drinking water is a vital issue for many communities. Even today, some Nigerians do not have access to it. As a result, they use various techniques to treat water before consuming it, regardless of its quality. Here is WADR's Mutala Zuberu reports from Niamey, voiced by Sankule Janko.
At the edge of a small pond, a young woman named Hadiza is crouched, diligently drawing water to fill a bucket. Despite its murky appearance, this water is essential for her daily needs. She plans to filter it before consuming it, a practice born out of necessity. Hadiza explains that during the rainy season in Nigeria, many rural inhabitants rely on surface water from rivers and ponds. These sources, while accessible, are often unclean and require filtration to be safe for drinking.
We've been using this water for nearly 10 months, filtering it to remove waste and insects before drinking it without boiling. However, we would greatly appreciate the construction of a drinking water infrastructure in our neighborhood. Many residents, especially those with limited financial resources, rely on this stream for their water. We hope that with divine assistance, we will one day have a proper drinking water facility in our area.
Usman Danbaji, president of the Network of Journalists for Water, Hygiene and Sanitation, emphasizes that surface water from rivers or ponds should always be filtered before consumption. Unfortunately, due to a lack of resources, many people are unable to do so. risking their health.
Imaginez aujourd'hui si on te dit chaque fois quand tu peux boire.
Imagine being told that every time you need to drink water, you must first boil it or strain it. It's a daunting task to manage. It's crucial for public authorities and our partners to prioritize water in efforts to combat poverty. Water is a multifaceted issue. Without access to clean water, you lack proper sanitation, health and economic stability, and people are more likely to fall ill.
L'économie et vous allez tomber toujours malade.
As of December 31, 2023, 1 in 2 people in rural Niger did not have access to clean drinking water. The authorities aim to achieve nearly 60% access to clean water by 2026.
That was WADR's Mutala Zoberu's report, presented to you by Sankule Janko.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's join Usma Umra in Abuja for the newspaper review.
Hello and welcome to the press review segment. We begin today with First News newspaper, and it's leading with this story. Help Nigerians in need instead of spreading lies, says Peter Obi. Peter Obi, of course, is the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the last presidential election. Dangote drops oil sector bomb. Importers poisoning Nigerians with bad fuel. Demands probe. 18 killed, 3 kidnapped in fresh attack in Benue. This happened over the weekend. And now, below the masthead of the First News newspaper, you have Senator Oji Kalu calls for part-time legislature, regional government to cut costs. Of course, Oji Kalu is a lawmaker from the southeastern part of the country. He is calling for part-time legislature, regional government, as a means of cutting cost of governance. Court declines to stop Fubara from spending Rivers funds. Fubara is, of course, the governor of oil-rich Rivers State, who has been entangled in some political crisis with his former boss, Nyesom Wike, who is now the minister of the Federal Capital Territory. And, of course, he had approached, some lawmakers who had defected from the PDP to APC during the heat of the crisis and are now back to the PDP, had approached the court to stop the governor from touching Rivers funds because the State Assembly is yet to sit to approve any of its spending. But the court has declined the request by the lawmakers on the grounds that the state governance cannot be halted on the altar of the crisis between the state governor and the lawmakers. Of course, gunmen attack police patrol in Abba, and then 4 dead, including an inspector. Of course, this ugly trend continues in the southeastern part of the country, where our uniformed officials become targets of attacks by unknown gunmen, as they are called. And finally, another 58 Nigerian children rescued from traffickers in Ghana. This is again a very sad tale. We thought that the last 12 that were rescued from the same country, Ghana, would be the last, but here we are again with 58 Nigerian children rescued from traffickers in Ghana. And this is the much we have for you on this segment of Press Review from Nigeria's capital with me, Usman Umar, and it's back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Usman, for the Press Review.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, this segment of Newslink highlights the nationwide protest scheduled to start in Nigeria on August 1. Ahead of the protest, some security analysts are warning over the possibility of the 10-day protest turning violent and leading to destruction. However, WADR engaged the views of Gad Peters, a security analyst, about the importance of the protest and its impact on the security of the state.
The underlying factor is the fact that there's so much hunger, poverty, and distress in the country. A lot of Nigerians cannot afford 3 square meals a day. A lot of Nigerians think that the government is spending resources in areas where they ought not to spend resources. A lot of Nigerians think that the government day-to-day running is on the high side, that we're paying too much to take care of a few. So this explains why persons are calling for the protest. But having said that, I know that government and other persons are saying that, look, this protest is going to be hijacked. by enemies of the state to create more problems. And so the argument is, look, don't do this protest, government is going to respond to your needs. But having said that, it's the responsibility of the police to provide security when people, citizens of the country, say they are going to protest. And so the government needs to provide security for the protesters. Equally, if there are those that don't like the protest and they want to come say no to the protest, government needs to provide security for such individuals too.
Parliamentarians have agreed to reduce their salaries for the next 6 months, and President Bola Tinubu just recently approved a 70,000 minimum wage for Nigerian workers. What do you think could be the main reason for this planned protest when these demands are gradually being met by the government?
Well, I think I don't have the accurate number, but I think their demands are about 7, 8 to 10. And so if government have made 2, there are several other demands that they made, like the issue of fuel subsidy, the issue of export duty, and a number of other taxation. So government need to do more, by my own analysis, that government need to do more in terms of showing the willingness to look at listening. We don't need to go to the street. These are proactive measures we are taking. These are the steps we are taking to prevent the protest so that Nigeria do not suffer as a whole. So government need to do a bit more. Yes, government have tried, but I think they can do more. Personally, I see no reason why we should pay 360 Nigeria more salary, more allowances than the generality of Nigeria. So I think the reverse should be the case.
Nigeria is currently faced with security threats. Given the history of the NSAS protest in 2020, which wreaked havoc on peaceful citizens, what do you think this anti-bad governance protest will turn into if the government allows these huge number of people on the various streets of Nigeria?
Well, a peaceful protest ought not to turn to a violent protest if it's properly managed. And this is why I guess those protesting or planning the protest are giving government a long notice so that government will be able to to think within and outside the box to engage and respond. I think that if those planning the protest wanted to protest hardly, they wouldn't have given that 1 month or more notice or have hit the street. So my thinking is the fact that, look, they are open to discussion with government. They are open to giving government opportunity to do what they think is the right, to make amends. So I don't think that we should allow the protest to degenerate. Government should do as much as they could by reaching out and meeting some of those demands. And if that happens, the protesters should take a middle ground and give government another opportunity to work on what they've agreed they are going to do, and then they can meet those other demands gradually.
Gar Peters is a security analyst. Now, in the world of sports, the Togolese Football Federation has officially announced the appointment of Mbode Dari as the new head coach of the national team known as the Sparrowhawks. The announcement was made during the weekend at a press briefing, and it brings to an end speculation about who would succeed Paulo Duarte. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudo Ju for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Cully. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.